Hey everybody, welcome back to another Sunday Live over here on Clark the Realtor's YouTube channel. I'm going to make sure that we can hear each other. That you can hear me. Sorry. Before we kind of start this discussion, in case, as usual, no one joins, if you watch it on the replay, that you will be able to hear the audio effectively. So let's just make sure. Sorry, you guys. I gotta make sure we are live over here on the YouTube. Give me 1 second. Like I said, I always want to make sure you're live over here on the YouTube. All right. So it sounds like we're good or whatever. I'm going to turn the music off and we're going to get started. So this YouTube is kind of going to be more of a discussion. We'll look at a few articles, but we're just going to discuss this crazy housing market, or what some people like to say that is the housing market damaged. Has it cracked? Is it hard for people to be able to, hey, what's going on, Dad? Make sure to let me know if you guys can hear the YouTube video correctly. Also, if you're new and just discovered the channel, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to hit that like button and hit that notification bell to know whenever we go live over here on the channel. And once the video is finished, if you could please hype the video. That is YouTube's new thing. Instead of liking the video, they want you to hype the video. So it helps us kind of get through the algorithm some more. So outside of liking, make sure you hype. I know it's an extra step for you guys to take, but I appreciate it. Even if you go back to any other videos, YouTube kind of puts it on certain videos. So if you see a video that you're watching on the channel and underneath that video, if it says hype, hit that hype button and hype up the YouTube video, because it's supposed to blast it through the algorithm in a different way. So needless to say, we'll get into this discussion of the housing market is damaged. And I wanted to have this conversation based off of a lot of factors, just based off of talking to people, people who are trying to buy houses, people who are trying to sell houses, and coming to the realization as if they're stuck as far as in their house, or also are they at a standstill when it comes to buying a house. So I figured, why not have this discussion? I'm always talking about it every day. And lately I have been talking about it even more to clients in regards to home ownership in the United States of America. Before we get into this, we will start by reading this article in regards to the proposals that the Trump administration or Trump tried to put in place when it came to the housing market. However, some of these ideas that he tried to put in place have not been able to fully be followed through with, and Congress is not going to execute some of them. So it says Trump housing proposals don't address the biggest challenge. And so they're talking about the proposals Trump has announced thus far do not involve boosting housing supply, which economists and industry leaders say must occur to improve affordability. So this article is breaking down the whole thing of them saying that we need more homes built. I don't know the exact number, but according to some researchers, they're saying that we have enough homes already built in America, and we don't really need more built. We have a lot of empty homes, about 15 million, I believe they said, of empty homes in the United States of America. I know that could depend on where you're at. It might be more or less as far as availability when it comes to these homes. So they're saying that they need to build more homes in order to hopefully cause an end to the housing dismay or whatever, the not enough housing in America. So it says the housing related proposals that President Donald Trump announced last week are mainly focused on lowering mortgage rates and helping first time buyers. Meanwhile, questions remain about what the federal government will do to address the nation's shortage, which many economists say is key to improving affordability. Housing-related policy shifts under consideration. Trump's, who proposed aggressive housing reform in 2026, has so far proposed a ban on corporate home purchases and vowed to buy $200 billion in mortgage-backed securities. So we mentioned this on the last live in regards to Trump kind of spewing out these conversations on his Truth Social accounts. I'm not sure if he did it on X or Twitter, but in regards to saying that, hey, he wanted to ban institutional investors from purchasing properties. And then also he wanted to force Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac to go about buying $200 billion in mortgage-backed securities. Hey, what's going on, David? Happy Sunday. Thanks for joining me tonight. I appreciate your time. and we're just going to talk, as I mentioned before at the top of the show, we're just going to talk about is the housing market damaged? Is this a lot of conversations I've been having as far as people trying to buy and clients that I've currently have right now that are trying to buy, that have been trying to buy in the last 2.5 years. I've been working with them 7 months, a year. I have been working with several clients who have been trying to buy. Some people are, waiting on the sideline, might have went into renting, but now they're back out trying to search, or trying to buy. And then also sellers who want to sell in the midst of this market, but either the ones that purchased a couple years ago or the ones that purchased several years ago. So I just want to address this type of have this conversation and just see how you feel, or anybody feels that's watching this live tonight. And even if you're watching this on a replay, see how you feel in regards to the comments below. So state any comments. You can reach out to me. I'll put my right now. I'll also put it, and it's in the typically in the show notes below, but you can reach out to me. My cell phone number is here, 678-995-3170. This is my work cell phone number. So if I don't get back to you right away, trust and believe I will. And then also my email address as well. This is my work email address. So these two are work related ways to contact me. However, I will get back to you as soon as possible. All right. So let's kind of jump into the next thing in regards to the issue that they were talking about as far with Trump. The Trump administration is also reportedly considering loosening restrictions on the use of retirement funds, college savings accounts for housing down payments, and allowing homeowners to take their mortgage rate with them when they move via portable mortgages. So we talked about this as well as far as the portable mortgages, them floating those ideas, and when it comes to taking that mortgage with you when purchasing another house. So these are all proposals that they're stating that Trump had proposed. However, they feel like it doesn't effectively address the bigger issue, which most economists are saying that it is that we need more housing built. And all right, let's go to the next thing. It says building new homes hasn't yet been mentioned as a major focus for administration in terms of its plans to address affordable housing. It says band-aids for housing fundamental issue. While a portable mortgage plan could increase supply by enticing more sellers to put their homes on the market, potential buyers would still be left to compete for a limited number of homes, which will drive up prices if there is no uptick in supply. In regards to this portable mortgage, there is, from me reading this, what they're saying is that it's great for somebody who has a mortgage, right? If they did put this portable mortgage in place, yes, if you could take your 2%, your 3% and float it somewhere else and combine with that, whatever you owe in a house, the mortgage rate, all those different factors that will kind of key into this. However, they're like, well, where does this leave buyers who are trying to buy into the market, because they wouldn't be taking a portable mortgage with them because they have no mortgage, right? So they would come in at the whatever the rates are now. As we know, last week they kind of dropped and teetered down into the 5s, and they're still hovering depending on the overlays and credit scores, debt to income ratio, all these different factors that can give you a certain credit score, FHA, VA, conventional, however you decide to take the loan. But also we're seeing them right now, national average is about 6.07, 6.08-ish right now. So they're saying if you were to enter the market at this price point as a buyer, the portable mortgage is not enticing for you to want to buy because you have no mortgage to do so. All right. Studies vary, but several estimate that the nation's housing shortage is between 4 to 7 million units. While inventory did improve in 2025, levels remain well below what they were before the pandemic. So yes, inventory did improve in 2025, depending on where you're at, right? Certain areas you might have saw more inventory come up. Some areas might have seen no inventory at all. Depending on where you're at. So the Metro Atlanta area, we saw inventory increase in certain areas throughout the metro. And some of that inventory, unfortunately, is not the best inventory. We had, of course, institutional investors that are silently liquidating their properties. And with that being said, they had tenants that were in place. Some of these tenants didn't do the best job of upkeeping the homes. They might have had dogs. They might have put holes in the wall. They might have had water damage while it was happening. And typically some of these big companies that are institutional, that institutional companies are that buy this real estate do not have the best management in place. So with that not being in place, that what happens is when these things happen, like a pipe bursts and water falls through the ceiling, or if the HVAC goes out or different things happen, the roof collapse, you get a company that sends out their quote unquote workers. Most of these workers are patchermen. I always look at people as patchermen unless you actually solve the problem and fix it and not put a band-aid on it. If you're just coming in there and you patching it up, you're a patcher, man. You're not an expertise and my ability when it comes to fixing things. And so a lot of these institutional investors, corporations, they have these patchermen that come in, they patch up the house, they let it, it's almost putting a band-aid on a cut, letting it go through the time, and then they decide once the tenant moves out, they want to sell it, and they turn around and they try to sell the house, and none of this work has been done. You get an older possible HVAC unit, older water heater, you get a patchable roof, you get some, you might, if the tenant had dogs or animals, you get that musty smell on the carpet. Sometimes these animals do some, defecating and urinating on these different surfaces, so then you get that kind of seeping through. So you're getting these type of houses that are coming in the market in this metro Atlanta area. On top of that, you are getting houses that are being flipped as well. And some of these flippers are not doing a great job nowadays. They're, wanting to lower their costs per se in order to make a higher return because of the inflation. And so they're buying cheaply made, cheaply materials, putting them on houses, and they're not doing them correctly. And the labor work is very shoddy. So you're getting those. So even though we are getting inventory popping up on the market, some of this inventory is not the best inventory for a buyer trying to enter the space. Of course, you get the new construction, but some people are having their complaints with the new construction in regards to the affordability levels and some of as far as getting into those communities. And then also, depending on where you're at, these new constructions come with HOAs in place, and some people do not want to be governed by an HOA. And then you are getting some, as I say, with new construction, similar to any other house, you are getting a little bit of shoddy work nowadays, just because a lot of these new construction sites are having subcontractors on subcontractors on subcontractors. And, I don't want to say nothing wrong in regards to the people that are building them, because we need people to build our new construction, but you do get a lot of more foreigners building these new construction homes. And when I go on site to talk to them, a lot of them do not speak English. So it's a little harder for them to be able to take the information, relay it, and then put it in place. And so a lot of people that I notice when I go to these sites, being foreigner based and not having that English, that being able to translate English very well, they're giving them like diagrams as far as the floor plans for them to look at, to then go about making the properties. And then you also seeing on these sites, you're seeing bottle, like Coke bottle cans, you're seeing alcohol, you're seeing several things, plastic things, and they're on these sites when they're building out, because of course they have to take their breaks, they're eating and they're having lunch, and there's nowhere, I guess, to put the trash, so they're just throwing the trash all around the site. And then when they go to build a house, sometimes that trash actually goes in between the islands that they're putting in the kitchen, the bathtubs that they're putting inside your bathroom. So you're getting different things. So when it comes to the supply ramping up, depending on where you're at, again, in the metro Atlanta area, with the supplies ramping up, you're seeing things pop up, but they might not be the best thing that makes sense for some of these buyers. So these buyers are having a more difficult time of trying to buy, because it's not as many feasible options for them, as I should say. Hey, what's going on, Kotex Sita? Ozone generator works well for odors. Evil Twin was still banned. Okay, so the ozone generator, yes, because recently we gone into a property. It was a stench of odor in a carpet, and definitely needed to pull that carpet up. And I think that animal might have urinated in the carpet, so it possibly seeped through the carpet onto the slab and some sort, and hopefully there's no wood underneath there, because that stuff kind of sits and it's hard to get out of it. But the ozone generator, so if anybody has a smell, an odor inside your place or around you, as Kotaxita said, get that ozone generator. It works well for those odors. All right, so let's see what else they said. It says, if you're going to do all of these demand side things and you don't have any supply side things, you're going to make the problem even worse. So what they're basically saying is that with the Trump administration wanting to ban institutional investors, wanting to, of course, they're going after a lot of the foreigners who they're big in the construction field in America nowadays. They're building a lot of our new construction homes. They're coming out, they're fixing the roofs, anything that's with the resale homes as well. And with that being the case, they're saying with Trump administration kind of doing all these things and proposing all this stuff, but they're not increasing the supply of homes, it could only possibly worsen it in the long run. Let me know your thoughts if you guys feel like that. Of course, I'm always going to scream out, because my biggest issue right now is the affordability level. And I keep saying over and over to people that everybody is not going to be a millionaire. So if these homes stay propped up so long that they're half, 600,000, 800,000, $1 million, and you're buying in at that cost. And over time, most people want that appreciation in your home, right? But if you're buying in at $800,000, you're in a certain level of people who can afford those type of houses. I don't know what the percentage is as far as people making certain wages as far as their living, but I don't see everybody making $1 million. I wish I made $1 million. I don't make $1 million a year, right? And so with that being said, I just want to know how the affordability or how the home ownership will increase throughout the years if all these homes are $700,000, $800,000 and nothing is at an affordable level for people to be able to buy. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know how you feel. If there's homes in your area that are $500,000, $600,000, $700,000, and you know that most of your people around you or your the people that you know are making a modest living as far as their income and their salary a year, if the affordability level is just out of control for you right now. All right. Next thing they said, during January 12th appearance on CNBC, Redfin CEO Glenn Kelman said last week's proposal announcements are mostly band-aids. So they're talking about those proposals we talked about earlier. And we'll get down to what the builders want. So it says a variety of policy changes need to be made to boost supply, according to National Association of Home Builders. The association's 10-point plan aimed at addressing housing affordability challenges includes calls to eliminate excessive regulations, promote cares and skilled trades, fix building material supply chains, and make it easier for developers to finance new housing. And like we all know, it was that point in the time, right, when Trump decided to step in with the tariffs, make the tariffs higher, and there was this big words going around in regards to possibly how will we get that soft lumber from Canada. As far as those tariffs, how will we get other supplies from different countries, right? And how would that offset when it came to building new construction, or even if you had a resale and you were trying to add an addition to your home, or even if something in your home need like the roof went or different things, those asphalt tiles and different type of materials, if things are increasing in turn, we know that with those increases that the consumer is the one that actually picks up the difference in the cost. So even though you're taxing one side, that one side in turn puts it on the consumer, and then you in turn buy it based off of what they incurred, if that makes sense. So it's very, very interesting. So we'll stop sharing that in regards to the madness with everything that was proposed in 2025. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know your feelings now that we're in 2026 in regards to all these different proposals that were made by the Trump administration. And how do you feel like this could affect the housing market going forward? As I feel like now, and just as people have been saying, that we're kind of in a damaged housing market in the sense of when will it allow us to get to a space where we can see more people wanting to buy and sell outside of what we're currently seeing? Kotex Sita said, I'm a billionaire in Colombian pesos. Okay. Hey, hopefully we all move to Colombia and we all become billionaires, or Bali or some other country, Costa Rica, and we all live out our dreams as far as rich in those companies and those countries, and be able to actually take our income and subsidize it over there. But let me know your thoughts also in regards to what else kind of came out as FHA Bill Pulte for the housing. Hold on. What's going on? Okay. It says, let me see, make sure you guys can see this. All right. And he said, loving seeing my ATM receipts down here. You down there spending, huh? It says FHFA's Pulte demands home builders start building out their lot supply. So this was in January 9th from Weekly Real Estate News. The last article we read from was Real Estate News. It says Federal Housing Finance Agency Director Bill Pulte is demanding that home builders ratchet up production on new housing. In a post on X, Pulte declared builders who do business with Fannie and Freddie, which is most builders, need to start building out their lot supply, including optioned land, which is ready to go. More to come on our actions will take place. So they said that. Pulte followed up another post that stated builders need to do the right thing and build out those lots now, and lenders need to do the right thing now. It says last October, President Donald Trump he posted on social media that builders were sitting on 2 million empty lots and directed Pulte to get big home builders going, and by doing so, help restore the American dream. However, the FHFA and its government-sponsored enterprises lack the regulatory authority to coerce home builders into meeting specific production levels. Pulte also resumed his online attacks on the Federal Reserve Chairman with a post that said Jerome Powell should resign immediately. Powell's term ends in May. He has repeatedly stated he had no plans to step down ahead of this scheduled conclusion. Again, as we mentioned in the last live in regards to Jerome Powell, when he steps down as the chair, or when his term comes to an end, I should say, when his term comes to an end this year, he will still be one part of the 12 governors inside that Federal Reserve Board. So he still will have the right to be able to vote in regards to the different meetings as far as that takes place when it comes to the Federal Reserve. When it comes to the builders, wanting the builders to build out more of the supply, again, if you're in an area that's not seeing heavy building, those areas, depending on where you're at, are actually seeing a possible increase of pricing because, again, you're in a market where people might not be putting their houses on the market. And when they do put something on the market, it is that one single house or two or three houses, and with that being the case, they're able to kind of demand a little bit more because they know there's not as much supply on the market. However, when you come to the Sunbelt states, depending on where you're at, Florida, Texas, Georgia, even though they're not, I feel like in some reports they're mentioning Georgia, especially the metro Atlanta area, Georgia, but they're not mentioning it heavily the way they're mentioning like Florida and Texas and some of these spaces. But if you go to even some parts of Tennessee, some parts, and especially if you come to like this metro area, you'll see a heavy presence of homes on the market. Like every street I ride down, I see a home for sale. There are certain neighborhoods that there are no homes for sale, but if you ride throughout the metro Atlanta area, particularly Atlanta, certain counties like Henry County, you ride to DeKalb County, you ride into some parts of Rockdale, Newton County, or if you ride in some parts of course, Atlanta's in Fulton. If you go, let's say, Clayton County, you might see several homes on the market. So it just depends on where you're at. And if you go to Douglas County and some parts of Cobb as well, you'll see homes on the market as well that I kind of see it frequently. All right. So I don't know how you guys are feeling in regards to this current real estate market. Let me know your thoughts. We kind of share what Bill Pulte is saying and what Trump wants them to do, which is to get those builders to build out the rest of their lot supply. These builders who bought, a big piece of land and said that they're building hundreds of homes. Some of these builders, what they're doing now is because they're seeing a slow as far as people buying and the demand isn't as heavy as it was during the pandemic. They are now building, which they always done. They build it in phases, but now they're really taking these phases seriously. So if there are 6 phases to the build out, what they're doing is that they're literally building the first phase. And let's just say the first phase has, let's say 10 homes. They're building out these first 10 homes and they're waiting for 7 of them to sell. And then they're like, okay, once these 7 sell, let's start the second phase and we're building out the next 10. So we have 3 left in this phase and then we're shifting to 10. So we're hoping while we're building these next 10, these 3 will sell and then we'll shift over. So if anybody else comes in, we'll be able to get them to start hitting that next phase. A lot of them are not just building them all up just to build them up. And if you are seeing builders around you, what we're seeing in the metro down here is that they're all building to spec. So what spec is basically they're taking several floor plans that they've already pre-designed. So let's just say it might be 3 different floor plans. They might call it the Henry plan. Let's do colors. They might call it the blue plan, the red plan, the yellow plan. And you'll come in and these plans will be built out already and you'll kind of see the model homes of some of them. Typically what I'm seeing now is I'll see one typical model home of maybe like their best per se spec or maybe the middle spec of home. And they're building these out and they're like, you come inside and say, hey, this is the blah, blah, blah floor plan. And it's already built to spec. This is what it'll look like. And then if you say, oh, well, can I change the design? This and this, they'll say, no, we're not allowing for any changes. We're just building them to spec. And it's just better for the builders now to do that because if you build design according to a person coming in, what they're seeing is that if that person decides to back out last minute, something changes. Now you have a pre-made house built to a certain design, and this market is not calling for that. Yeah, you still have some small local builders who are building to design for people that come to them, put their certain amount of deposit down with them, and they see the project fully through. So they're offsetting that those fees to be able to build, the houses out. But a lot of these big builders that have all the supplies that they are trying to build out, they're just building spec, and they're really taking these phases into heavy consideration now. So that's what I'm seeing in regards to like the new construction. Of course, we're still seeing these, these incentives. We're still seeing these interest rate buy downs that they're doing. And actuality, it's costing them more. I feel like it's costing them more to buy down rates for people than to just give them money off the purchase of the house. So they're having talks with the lender, and they're facilitating these buy downs with them. So they might be paying to get their interest rate from where we're at, and might see the sixes, to get it all the way down to, some of them are 0.99, 1.99, 2.99 doing these buy downs, the 3-1 buy down, a 2-1 buy down, a 1-1 buy down, a 1 buy down. And if you guys need more context of buy downs, I am not a lender, I'm not a financier. However, I did lay out how buy downs work on a YouTube video that I have on my channel called "What is a Buy Down?" So you can go check that out to kind of get more context around buy downs. But what these builders are doing is that they're paying maybe $50,000, $30,000, $60,000 and monies to pay for these buy downs to give you as a consumer coming in as a buyer, because the big thing has been, the interest rates we need to have lower interest rate. We need to have lower interest rate. That's what's affecting the housing market. And my opinion only, I don't feel like it's just the interest rates. I feel like it's the housing prices too, because you can't never, and sometimes you can't do it with an interest rate either, but you can't never go back and change the price, but you can possibly change the interest rate if you're able to refinance in the future, right? Everybody can't refinance. There are things behind refinancing, right? So you got to make sure your credit is still good. Got to make sure you have your job. You got to make sure that there's some equity in the house. So there's key factors to refinance. But if you are in that position and those rates do come down sooner or later, you'll be able to do so, right? You'll be able to refinance. However, you cannot go and change the price of what you buy a house for. So just in my opinion, I feel like it's better if we could lower the housing rates down, and if we keep the interest rates in like the fives, but bring the housing down, maybe a good $100,000, $150,000, $200,000. I know that might be a big shocker to everybody, like, oh my God, to lose so much equity or to take so much pain in the cost of a house. But I really feel like houses that are $400,000, if we can bring them down to like, $250,000, have an interest rate around 5.5, 5.6, we might see more buyers hit the market. Because honestly, when I'm having these conversations, talking with these buyers, and I'm being honest with you guys, a lot of buyers want to buy, but they cannot afford to buy. They're getting pre-approved at certain price loan amounts that does not afford them, depending on where you live at, a good house that you can walk into without it having a hole in the wall, without the foundation sloping over, without it being flipped with like lipstick on a pig, some type of electrical problem, plumbing problem. Maybe you're not in the best neighborhood. So a lot of people don't see any, I guess, temptation to want to buy certain houses at a lower price point that they would have to go in and literally fix up. I think people are forgetting that most of these houses now that are, especially in the Metro Atlanta area, right? If a house might be $130,000, but might be a complete gut, might be a complete renovation, foundation issues, all these things, right? And so if somebody's only approved for, let's just say, 150, and this is all they can sustain with their job as far as their income, but also any debt that they might currently have, whether it be student loans, maybe a car note, those credit cards, whatever debt they kind of accumulate over time, because as we go through life, we still continue to live. And most people do have habitual habits in which they do things that, you should try to tighten up and clean up. Like my habitual habit is that I do go and order out frequently, that I do need to tighten up, and I will as this year goes on. But that's a habitual habit, right? Some people they like to buy nice things. Some people like to buy nice cars, different things, and that is an issue, a personal issue. However, I'm just comparing it with the economic circumstances when it comes to housing, that those type of debts in place that you might already have, like the cars and all those things, and you compare it to you trying to buy a house for 130 that is not a move-in ready or a turnkey house, to go in there and try to start repairing it. And if, let's say, you were able to only save, because the way the economy is going and you're currently renting, you're only able to save a good $20,000, $30,000. If you go in there and you try to start renovating, that renovation, those costs can go up. And so a lot of people cannot afford it. So I don't know how you guys are feeling. Let me know your thoughts. If you're watching this on a replay, let me know how you're feeling when it comes to this housing market. Do you feel like it is damaged? Also, don't forget to hit that like button, hit that notification bell. And if you are watching the video back in replay, I know it's not down here right now in the live, but please hit the hype button if there is one on this video, or if you're watching any other videos you might come across on this channel. If you see a hype button underneath, hit that hype button for me so we can hype it through the algorithm and blast us through here so we can get to 2,000 subscribers and hopefully get more people over here on this channel to have these conversations with us on Sunday and Wednesday. And when it comes to, now I'm gonna flip the script, right? When it comes to the sellers, what I'm noticing with some sellers, we had this conversation before too. A lot of them that are people that are trying to sell now are outside of these institutional investors, outside of these flippers, outside of these mom and pop investors, happen chance investors, or quote unquote second time homeowners, where they tried to, well, not second time homeowners, where they tried to basically sell their house, they couldn't sell the house, so they end up renting it out and just moved on to the next. So now they're just a one-off investor, or a happen chance investor per se, that they didn't really want to, but they had to do because they needed to move on due to some circumstances. But what we're seeing in regards to these sellers is that I do talk to people who want to sell their house, but they can't get out the house. And what I mean by they can't get out the house, what I'm having conversations about is, we're having this big thing where it comes to, it's so many people that have more, like, their mortgages, they don't have a mortgage. They're 40% of people in America don't have a mortgage, right? And when it comes to some of those terms, that some of that 40% happen to be older people that are retired from their jobs. So most of these people, if they don't have other passive income sources, they're on a fixed income. And when they're on a fixed income, if their house is paid off, and the way the inflation has risen from the time that they retired from their job, so they're at a certain fixed income based off of, let's just say they retired in the 90s, that you're on a fixed income according to that 90s job amount. You're not on a fixed income according to 2026 job amount. So with those inflation numbers going higher, that fixed income cannot afford another house. So let's just say you have no mortgage, you're able to successfully sustain yourself in place based off of your fixed income from 1990s, and your house fully paid off outside of any maintenance and repairs that you might have to take on because things happen in houses, right? And you're like, okay, I really want to move, but if I move, this house is now, let's say you bought it for $50,000 back in the day. I'm just making up a number. It probably might have been $80,000, depending on when you had $100,000, it depends. You bought it for $50,000, and now houses around you are $200,000 or $50,000 or $300,000, and you're like, okay, I would love to sell my house that's completely paid off, and I'm just paying my taxes, and my home insurance, however, and possibly your HOA if you're an HOA. However, if I sell this house, I would literally a bulk of that income to go put into another house. And this house is now, if my house is now $250,000 and the next house $250,000, after I sell my house and pay off the fees, whether depending on what state you're in, the closing attorney fees, the title fees, if you're using a real estate agent, the realtor fees, even if you're not using a real estate agent, you still have to close a certain way. So you still got to pay some type of fees, and then in turn, any type of debts per se that you want to pay off, because most people have debt. And when they pay off, like they sell a house, they like to clear some of their debt off and, be in a situation where they feel like they're debt free, where they have a worry off their back. So you're paying all this off, but now you want to go buy another house, and the other house $250,000. But now when you close, you bought your house, you sold your house for $250,000. However, when you close, you only get, let's say, $200,000. Most people don't want to put their whole $200,000 into buying a new house. They want to put some stuff to the side just in case, or they want to go, on a vacation. They want to live some of life per se, right? If they haven't been able to. And so now you throw the rest into another house, and what you end up having is a mortgage that you didn't have before, and you don't know if that mortgage coincides with your monthly fixed income. So now you're in a space where it's like, I don't want to move. What's the point of me moving? Because I have a mortgage that I didn't have before, and I don't want a mortgage. So you get some of those homeowners that are sitting still because they're like, if I move, then I'm set up. I'm here with a mortgage that I didn't have before. You get other people that are homeowners as well that bought within the last 3 years. So 2022, when the market was really high, some people in 2023, 4, and even 5, they are trying to sell too. And so these people that bought within the last couple of years, it's hard for them to get out because they bought too high. And they're like, okay, well, if I get out this house, I gotta again pay any type of fees, title fees, insurance, closing attorney fees, depending on the state, possibly realtor fees. And they're like, okay, well, how do I exit out of this house without me having to bring any money to the closing table? So we're seeing a lot of lock-in, like what Code Taxita said. Yep, I'm locked in, don't want another mortgage. Like a lot of people are literally locked in now where they don't want another mortgage. Or like the people who have to move, they do move. But most of what I'm seeing now is I'm seeing people, the houses that are coming on the market, of course, in the metro area is institutional investor houses, is flipper houses, and mom and pop investors. It's possible Airbnb investors. It's people who have to move. People who are in distressed situations, people that passed away, unfortunately. If their children, again, we had this discussion on last live, if their children don't live in the state, if their children have their own real estate already, they don't want to move in mom and dad's house. They don't want to move grandmom's house. So what those people are doing, some of them are selling, but you are getting people who are not selling those houses of people who passed away because some of those family members might not have a house. They might be renting. And they're like, hey, I'm going to move in this house. So you're seeing people moving to houses without going through the proper probate situation. So it's a lot of different factors kicking in regards to how the housing market can be damaged in so many ways when it comes to the buyer and the seller end. You got to look at it in both perspectives, saying, hey, as a seller, how did the seller get out to move on, to be able to take whatever money they make to move on? A lot of them don't want to sell because they're like, I don't have a mortgage. I don't want to go nowhere. My house is still good as far as I like it. A lot of them are like, well, I bought in 2022, 2023, 2024. I need to move or I have to move. I can't afford to sustain this and I'm done with it. However, they're like, I can't take with so much because I can't even afford to bring the money to the closing table because I can't even afford to be able to support my monthly mortgage. So you can't expect that seller to be like, hey, let me turn around and pay $20,000 to $30,000 to $40,000 to get out of this house at the closing in order for me to sell this house. And I know on the buyer side, they're like, well, that's not my fault. Like, I ain't nobody tell you to buy the house at a high price, which is true. But at the end of the day, that becomes it clashes where people can't move, right? So it becomes a sense of, as they say, when it comes to real estate, negotiating on both sides, where it has to make sense for both people, for the buyer to jump in, where they're like, okay, if I'm going to jump in here, this is affordable to me. I can afford this. I can maintain this. But also, I'm not buying too high because as the market might soften, depending on where you're at, I don't want to get caught upside down too bad. So if I put this much into it and I buy it at this amount, I can be kind of safeguarded for when it finally does kind of land, like a landing happens, because we don't know where it's going to land. We don't know if it'll go down. We don't know if it's going to go up. We don't have a crystal ball, right? So we can't predict which way the prices are going to go right now. Depending on where you're at, prices are staying stagnant. Prices are softening a little bit. If you're in the Northeast area, they might be seeing a little appreciation going on. But yeah, in the Sunbelt states, we're seeing a depreciation. However, we do have some nutcases down here on seller side who think their houses is worth 2022 prices. I'm just saying. Code Taxita said, if I had a 10 to 15 year runaway, I'd consider it. Okay. Okay. You said you have a 10, 15 year. Excuse me. Sorry, y'all. Now, if I could get 350 million from my Aspen Airbnb, hey, yeah, if you can get that Aspen Airbnb sold and make that millions and millions of dollars, you'll be able to buy several different other properties around the United States, especially maybe even in the Midwest, because that's where it seems that the prices are still kind of evenly distributed as far as when it comes to a price point, according to what they're mentioning in Realtor.com and all these other platforms. I don't live in the Midwest, so I don't know fully their market, but according to them, they're saying that that's an area which you can buy, and also supposedly Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania. But I did ask my little cousin who lives in Pittsburgh, and she said no. So again, I don't live in Pittsburgh, but according to the data, that's what they're saying with these different real estate platforms. But yeah, so that's what I'm seeing. And like I said, on the buyer side, what I'm noticing is that the buyers want to jump into the space, but that's what's happening, right? They're the affordability level, they don't want to pay a certain amount for that mortgage because typically they have a certain rule, right, as far as how much you should be paying for your monthly mortgage. In the back of the day, the lender, when it was like around 30%, you didn't really want to go more than 30% of that monthly, I believe it's the monthly income, as far as what you're bringing home. And I always tell people, don't base it off the gross, base it off the net. that actual true amount that you're bringing home, and then also factor it up based around the other bills, right? The whole thing is that you don't want to buy a house and be, and don't have no money. You're poor. Basically, you're quote unquote, I guess what they call a house rich, but cash poor, or what is it? Money poor, something like that. I don't know if I'm saying it right. But you have a house, but you don't have no other funds to actually buy furniture, to live in the house, to supply yourself with the refrigerator if it doesn't come with the house, because some new constructions don't come with refrigerators depending on where you're at. And so it's like, okay, you bought this house, but you can't actually put furniture, you can't furnish it. And so you don't want to be in that situation. And because of that, people are like, does this make sense? You do have some people that will go above and beyond and go into those spaces and say, hey, I'm the Joneses. I keep up with the Joneses, baby. And they're going to go and they're going to just ball out and keep up with the Joneses. And little do you know, on the outside, they look like they're keeping up with the Joneses, but in the inside, they living in a house where they only got a comforter and the living room floor. So you don't want to do that as a buyer either, right? And so what's happening is that most people that are smart buyers and trying to be strategic in this market or buying a house going forward, they're like, okay, this is what it has to be for it to make sense. And I agree, right? You need to be at a certain income amount in regards to how much you make a year as well. And if you don't make that income amount, let's say 150,000 plus now because of the way these houses are, then whatever houses you're buying, you need to make sure you can afford it on a monthly mortgage income that's not sucking up all your money. So that way, in case things happen, you have an emergency fund, you're still able to save, you're still able to live life comfortably without feeling like you're stretching yourself thin. If you're in an HOA, if your HOA goes up, you'll still be able to afford the difference, the offset of that. If your home insurance goes up, you can afford that. If those property taxes go up, you can still afford that. So you want to try to get in lower with that mortgage. So then as time goes on and those things kind of offset and go up in price, you still won't be sitting there and be scared that you can't afford it and have to change that lifestyle. Because the goal is, and of course we can't say that this happens all the time, but the goal is that as you go through life and your career, that you'll move up the ladder and prayerfully you'll make more money. But again, we do know you can go all the way up to the top of the ladder in your career and you can become the CEO of a company and you can get laid off, right? So we want to make sure that during your process of you buying a home and having that monthly mortgage, that you can still put enough money aside. So if those things happen, you can have something for the rainy day. All right. Hopefully that makes sense and it's not just a bunch of wordage coming out my mouth. Kosak Sita said the skyrocketing prices over the past 6 years kept many of us from stepping up. Yes, and I agree, and that's what I kind of trying to say in regards to this live, that these prices have really stopped a lot of people from wanting to go out and buy, especially the people who own homes currently, right? Because traditionally, what happens in the housing market, you do get your first time home buyers, but you do get your home owners who start to say, hey, you know what? This is a nice house. This is a nice neighborhood, but I would rather go over here. Or I've always thought about living over here. Or I want to shift closer to my family. Or I want to go to this state. Or, hey, I got a job promotion or a job something and I want to go here. And so they start to shift and they sell. And we're still seeing some of that happening now, but it's not happening the way it happened back in the day where people were more eager to take chances. People were more eager to seek out opportunities. And now in this particular economy, just not even just housing, but outside of the ecosystem, people don't want to step up and take those chances. Like a lot of Americans don't want to do that, or citizens that are in America, because it's not just Americans, we also have foreigners too, but that are in America, they're not willing to take these chances no more because they're like, ooh, I don't want to move around too much because everything's so expensive. And then the way this economy is going right now, people are very on eggshells where it's like, what's going to happen tomorrow? Is Trump going to come out and announce that tomorrow the housing market has plummeted 80 million? Like, I don't know, so a lot of people are not wanting to take the risk, right? LOL, this isn't a nice neighborhood. He said, no, this is not a nice neighborhood. But hey, you're in it, according to from what you had mentioned, that your house is a nice price point for the neighborhood that you're in. So you're able to build that equity through that pandemic surge as far as that inflation. But so that's what I'm seeing. So a lot of the different real estate news that I'm hearing, and this is just based off my opinion. I'm not saying that one person is knows more than the other person. These are all opinions and some factual stuff that we kind of state in some of these videos. If you watch other real estate channels as well, this is some information that is being spewed on paper, whether through articles or some factual information through the data points that we kind of talk about on these different channels, but then also is mixed with some of our opinions as well. And then on top of that, what we're seeing in our local markets. And so the reason why I talk a lot about certain points or I mention a lot of certain things is because this is what I'm seeing in this market that I'm in. And so that's why I can attest and kind of talk and speak a little bit more in these type of points that we're talking about. But from the conversations, again, that I'm having, this is when it comes to the buyers, this is what I'm having. And when it comes to the sellers, those conversations are what I'm having. The sellers, a lot of these sellers are locked in, and a lot of them aren't locked in because of interest rates. So I know that's been the big thing. Oh, these people are locked in because 2 to 3% interest rates. No, some of the people love that were homeowners that were able to buy at 2%, 3%. Some of them, if they bought earlier, they did get an okay price, but as it kept going on throughout 2021, 2022, a lot of them locked in too daggone high at these low interest rates. And now property taxes and all those things went up, that mortgage with that interest rate is still offset in a different way. Like I know some people who bought like $700,000 house that maybe their monthly the mortgage was about close to like $2,000 something, and now over time with the property taxes, the daggone mortgage is down near $4,000 to $5,000, even though they have a lower interest rate. So those interest rates, to me, they don't really matter. I feel like people that might have got more of a benefit from those interest rates was the people that refinance. So let's say if you bought a house in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, during the pandemic, that great financial housing crash, maybe you were able to get a foreclosure for $80,000, $60,000 after they were being sold before then for about $120,000 or $160,000. The houses in 2005, and then it crashed, and then people stuck them up for like $60,000, $80,000, and they stayed in that house. And then the pandemic happened where the rates went so low that some of these people might have had, let's just say, 40, maybe depending on how they're paying, because the interest rates back then, if they scooped the house up probably in like 2011, 2012-ish, their interest rates might have been around maybe 4s-ish. They might have refinanced to a 2. So they're like, or a 3. They're like, okay, I ain't going nowhere. Like, so you got those people locked in. But as far as the people that bought with those interest rates in 2s and 3s in 2022, 2021-ish, if they bought way high, those interest rates ain't locking people in. I'm gonna tell you that. I know people who bought then, and I know people who are like, I'm ready to move. So, and they are moving. So I personally, from conversations and from people I know, I don't know everybody. I know that is not the case with that. Coach Tech Caesar said, I went from 8.6 to 3.3. See, so like someone like yourself would be a perfect example of being able to refinance from that 8 to that 3 and feel comfortable as far as those monthly mortgage payments, where you stretch out that mortgage a little longer and paying way less, and you're in a comfortable spot where the rents in your area are overly priced. The houses that are being built depend on the neighborhood. I know you say not in the best neighborhood, but if you go over blocks further over or yonder per se outside, you're probably getting high price point houses. And with that being the case, they're paying way more for those mortgages. So people in your situation, you were able to refinance that, that rate, get that lower rate, shift down that payment, lower. Possibly, I don't know if you went from a 30-year to maybe a 10-year, 15-year mortgage. I know when my mom refinanced, she went from a 30-year to I think she said like a 20 or 15. I don't know, but her payment stayed the same with that new interest rate, and from the 30 there, so she was able to refinance and take it lower. Okay, you went from a 30 to a 15 years. So that's what some people were doing. And again, this is just based off of me, the conversations, having the talks, the knowledge, the experience, that this is what I was seeing, like people refinancing that bought a long time ago with those higher interest rates. So those are the ones that are like, that I felt like really won. I feel like those were the homeowners that really won in this whole housing market. The ones who already owned homes and they were able to kind of win during the pandemic. And then those people that got in just before the pandemic, I feel like they were able to win in the sense of they were able to take that low interest rate and they were able to pair it with a 2019 type of price point for a house where they can still see that. But as far as other people, I don't honestly feel like they win. And like I said, most of those people, they trying to move or they moving. He said, and still lowered my monthly payment by $200 a month. See, exactly. So that's a win-win right there, Cotexita. That's a win-win. So yeah, so that's what I'm kind of seeing in regards to this housing market. So the answer that I guess I'll ask the question again, is the housing market damaged? To me, I feel like there is definitely damaging happening as far as manipulation with the government, the federal manipulation as far as people, the inflated equity, as far as the also manipulation of those rates, those mortgage rates, the Fed, everything was manipulated, right? Because of the pandemic, the uncertainty, they didn't know what was happening with the economy. So it created a manipulation in regards to that. So if you're a buyer and you're watching this, and if you're just joining now, go back and watch the video. And also if you're a seller, go back to watch the video. Let me know if this is a similar situation that you're feeling right now, as far as you feel like you're stuck in your home, and it's not for the sense of an interest rate, really. It's for the sense of, I don't have a mortgage. I have a low monthly mortgage payment, and everything else is so unaffordable that if I move, I don't want to take on a new mortgage if I don't have one, or I don't want to take on a high mortgage payment if I have a lower one. And then also, if you're a buyer, are you seeing that stress when it comes to like, I've been looking, and I feel like I can't find nothing. Before 2020, 2021, 2022, people were buying up it was a frenzy in buying, right? So you couldn't really get in because every time you put an offer in, it was 30 other offers. And now, depending on where you're at, and it's more, I know in the Metro Atlanta area, that people are like, okay, now it's houses on the market. Everybody's not getting, it's sitting longer, days on market. It's not a bunch of offers being put into these houses. However, these are not the best selection when it comes to houses. These are more lipstick on the pig houses. These are corporate investor owned houses, mom and pop investor owned houses, flips that are not done correctly. And it's like, okay, yeah, we see more houses popping up, but it's not great choices. So let me know if that's kind of what you're experiencing from either end. I appreciate everybody being here tonight. Again, if you want to reach out to me, I always forget to do this, so I'm going to start trying to do it if I can remember. This is my contact information. It is business related only. So this is my cell phone number, and this is my contact number. Email. In regards to if you want to reach me, again, if I don't reach back right away, do not feel like I'm ignoring you. Those are both business contacts. So they typically get answered during the weekdays, if possible, between 9 to 5. And I will make sure I answer you back. Because these, that's business stuff. So, and then also don't forget, of course, to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new here. And if you're watching the replay, let me know where you're from. If you just made it over to the channel, let me know who brought you over here. If possible, I know that I'm able to sit down and talk with some other wonderful realtors out here throughout the United States of America. Of course, one of them is David Matney from Omaha, Nebraska. Also, Jen Sylvester from Boston, Massachusetts. Well, Massachusetts, Plymouth. Jackie as well from New Jersey. Christina from Louisiana, and so many other wonderful realtors in this YouTube space. So if you came over here from them, I'm grateful to have you. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and also at the end of the video, if you see it below, hit the hype button for me, okay? And I will see you guys next Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. Take care and have a great Sunday. Bye-bye.